The latest traffic death in Denver is a reminder that everyone needs to follow the rules. The state's plan to make healthcare cheaper is complicated, it is contentious, but it's worth taking time to understand. Advocates fighting with the city over changes to the 16th Street Mall had this same battle 40 years ago. So how'd we end up in the same place? Next, viewers want to know what they're digging up at a cemetery in the suburbs. Perhaps we don't want to know. And there's a little snow coming this week, which gives local TV news a chance to do what we do best: freak out. That's next. Let's start with a seemingly simple question tonight. What is a curb? Well, of course, it separates the street from the sidewalk, and it's not that big of a deal if you can also see the difference. But for those who cannot see, curb is a literal lifesaver, which is why advocates in Denver's blind community are pleading with the city right now, tonight, to reconsider the redesign of the 16th Street Mall. Our Steve Steger found this is a fight that they won decades ago.
Curbs are the universal tactile indicator that you are about to leave the sidewalk and go into the street.
And right now they run all along the 16th Street Mall, the signal that the sidewalk is ending and the bus lane is coming. But in new plans to redesign the mall, the city says it may be time for them to go. Brian Pinkerton is the mall's project manager.
By removing the curb, we think we can increase the quality of the public space and also accessibility for people in wheelchairs should we close the block and have some kind of event in the block.
Something that worries Dan Burke with the Colorado Center for the Blind.
They want to take out all the curbs. We use curbs to navigate with.
And Amanda Williams, a student at CCB.
It is our indicator of when we are leaving the sidewalk. When you can put, your cane down there and it's, okay, this is where I am.
This is a familiar fight. Burke mentioned it to Diane McGeorge, the founder of the Colorado chapter of the National Federation for the Blind.
She said, oh, yeah, they wanted to do that back when they first put the mall in, which was in the late 70s as they were planning it then. And the blind had to work to make sure that the mall was, in fact, understandable, I guess, for blind travelers.
The city says instead of curbs, the plans call for a buffer zone of sorts.
And it will have trees, lights, and fixed furnishings in it, pretty much from end of block to end of block.
Something these advocates say isn't enough.
No matter how many planters or vendors or things you put in the way, I can always walk off without knowing until I'm in traffic.
So the city's meeting with disability advocates right now to talk about the new hybrid curves. They insist the current design plans are ADA compliant, but the planner from the city says that they plan to listen and work with everyone. And they say that we are a long way from seeing the final designs for this. This is kind of a plan that they're going to give to an engineer, and then the engineer will draw up a real plan moving forward. And we may see curbs in that, but they're saying that it makes the space more accessible for people in wheelchairs if they're going to open it up and take the buses off, say for an event or something like that. That would make that more accessible.
Yeah, because not everybody with a barrier to accessibility has the exact same barrier, so there's kind of competing interests sometimes. Yeah. All right, thank you, Steve. The city can reduce speed limits, it can add more protected bike lanes, but then cyclists in Denver have to do their part to keep themselves safe. And Denver police say that the driver who hit and killed a cyclist last night at Brighton Boulevard and 38th, that driver was doing nothing wrong. Detectives say that the cyclist ran a red light and was hit just before 10:30. Advocates for the cycling community acknowledge that this is a sad reminder for everyone to be more aware.
It's a two-way street too. The cyclists got to pay attention to the rules of the road as well. I think we're equally responsible.
The driver who hit the cyclist stayed there at the scene. That driver is not going to face charges. It's the third cyclist who's been hit and killed in a crash this year in Denver. One driver out of those three crashes has faced criminal charges. More affordable health care sounds great, and states are taking different paths trying to get there. Colorado just unveiled its planned path, and we all don't have much time to offer our feedback on the ideas. Just 2.5 weeks on what is a very complicated issue. Our Nusha Roy explains.
You're going to hear the word state option a lot, so let's start with what that means. Colorado is interested in offering a healthcare option designed by the state. The goal is to make the healthcare marketplace more competitive and more affordable by cutting down premiums and out-of-pocket costs. Here's why the state thinks it's important. Lawmakers say they've heard from people that healthcare isn't as affordable as it could be, and some patients are paying more than in other states. So one of the changes the state wants to make is asking hospitals to make their pricing more competitive while making sure they don't run rural hospitals out of business. The Colorado Hospital Association is not really thrilled with the idea. They agree affordability is an issue, but is also worried about the state weighing in on prices, and that if providers and hospitals aren't getting paid as much, it warns quality of care could go down. They also took issue with the numbers in the proposal, saying they're too Denver-centric. The Colorado Association of Health Plans that represents insurance companies are also worried about a recommended requirement that a lot of insurance companies would have to provide a state option plan.
So, of course, this is just in proposal phase, and in order for this to actually happen by 2022, state legislators will need to pass another set of laws based off those recommendations they get. So that is where the public input comes in handy, and people have until the 25th now to weigh in.
And because there are so many different approaches out there, I want to be super clear. This is not necessarily the state of Colorado running its own plan. They would force private insurers to run the plan they design.
To basically carry it out, because those are the people who are able to do it. It would be the state overseeing and setting the recommendations for what an insurance company should be providing to people in Colorado and what those premiums and costs should be.
We've heard pushback that's come into us from business owners, business leaders on the Western Slope, on the Front Range. What's the crux of their concern?
Yeah, so right now there's been a lot of skepticism about it, and you're hearing it from a lot of the healthcare industry as well, right? They're just really worried that this is going to be too disruptive to the healthcare system. In response to that, the state is basically saying these industries have made a pretty penny over the last couple of years, and because their profits have gone up so much that they feel like there is some wiggle room there to help save some people money.
Yeah, some of the intent is to disrupt their profit structure.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Anusha. We'll keep following this. Aurora City councilors want the immigration detention center in that town to play by their rules. City Council voted last night to move forward on a proposed ordinance that would require detention centers in the city to report any disease outbreaks within 48 hours. Now, if you're thinking, boy, that sounds like an awfully specific request, remember that at the ICE detention center, the facility had a chickenpox and a mumps outbreak earlier this year, and the concern was that it wasn't reported quickly enough. Aurora City Council will take this up again at their next meeting. Our next question is from viewers who want us to do some digging about the digging at Wesley Chapel Cemetery in Westminster. It's an old cemetery, dates back to 1889. Unmarked graves and some weathered markers. Sarah and Linda noticed the giant dirt piles and the construction workers there at 120th and Huron. They thought the graves might be being moved. Wayne wrote in thinking that they were disinterring bodies to make way for development. Wouldn't that be something? They're digging up great-great-grandpa to make room for a new froyo place. But that's not what's happening. The city of Westminster says the digging is just to put in a new wrought iron fence and brick pillars. They are not moving any of the graves at Wesley Chapel Cemetery. So those buried there and you can rest easy. Not that moving a cemetery for this reason or that would be all that unprecedented. I mean, go way back. Denver's Cheeseman Park used to be Prospect Hill Cemetery. The process of moving the bodies in the 1800s, well, it was a disorganized mess. And Dillon's old cemetery from the 1880s was moved to make way for the reservoir in the 1960s. All these years later, Dillon is still working to mark the unmarked moved graves. Brace yourself, Denver, for impending white doom. A small amount of fall snow is going to give local TV news stations a chance to practice our breathless team coverage and to offer inane driving tips like, slow down. Yeah, I'm sorry, but if it has not occurred to you to slow down when driving in the snow, no amount of chipper TV chatter is going to drill that idea into your head. Probably is worth remembering, though, that Colorado has literally changed the rules of the road this year. And tomorrow is the start of CDOT's public relations campaign for the new traction law. Not saying it's complicated, but they're giving people a flow chart. Can I walk you through this? If you got four-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, and good tires, well, then you're good. If you have two-wheel drive, well, then you need good snow or mud tires. If you have two-wheel drive without snow or mud tires, then you'll need chains or a traction device. CDOT reminds people these rules will apply everywhere, not just on I-70 in the mountains where the crashes are common. The new traction law gets even more confusing when you talk about severe snowstorms along I-70. CDOT says that during those storms, all vehicles will need chains on I-70 in the mountains, but they're not focusing their public relations campaign and their flow chart and their enforcement on that issue right now. State Patrol tells us the goal is not to be writing tickets this winter, though it's obvious that they're hoping at least the threat of tickets for people who cause crashes and block traffic will get people to take the traction law seriously.
If they could have solved this riddle with a computer, they would have done it that way.
The physics are just too complicated for computers to be able to solve all by themselves.
Instead, CSU had to build a giant indoor waterfall. And a lot of great authors don't make a lot of noise with their first book. One in Denver is being heard nationwide. Next.
Hi there, welcome back. One of the cool things about forecasting in Colorado is we can go from summer weather to winter weather in 24 hours, and we're going to do that this week. Sunshine today, beautiful conditions up and down the Front Range over the higher terrain. Our high today, 80. We'll see this number again tomorrow, and then we'll watch that number drop about 50 degrees in 24 hours. The leading edge of a storm already kind of knocking on the door for Colorado. It's got Arctic air with it. Winter weather and travel advisories are out for the northern Rockies, and we'll see some of the heaviest snow north and east of us, but Denver will get in on some of the action starting after midnight tomorrow night through about the mid-afternoon time period on Thursday. Accumulation amounts will be light, but the wind will be fierce. Temperatures are going to drop, and yeah, it will probably impact your travel. Fair skies, 46, a calm night tonight. Tomorrow with sunshine, almost 80 again in the city. We do see the front roll in tomorrow afternoon. You'll notice when the wind picks up, rain and snow Wednesday night, light snow, but bitterly cold on Thursday. I have a high of 34, but actual afternoon temps will be in the mid-20s with a hard freeze and a record low of 15 Friday morning. But then sunshine, 40s to round out the week, 60s and 70s. Of course, the Broncos come back to town on Sunday, and Kyle Kebler Pass is just on fire. Judy Husby sending in this beautiful picture. I think the leaves are going to look a lot different after this storm.
One of my favorite passes, and there are many. Thank you, Kathy. Gross Reservoir Dam, southwest of Denver, holds some of the water that we drink in the city, and that dam's been on duty for 70 years now. The plan is to expand it, which is easier said than done. The dam was built in the 1950s, and the location was specifically picked because the thought was that area could handle an expanded dam project in the future as Denver's population grew. Spoiler alert, the population grew. So now Denver Water wants to raise the dam 131 feet. They think that can nearly triple the amount of water it can hold. They can't just raise the dam level and then call that done. It's very complicated. So Denver Water reached out to CSU to ask for help. And that's how they ended up with an indoor waterfall on campus.
It's like a Zen waterfall, you know. We end up muddy and wet almost every day out here. What we have behind me is a 1:24 scale model of the proposed spillway for the Gross Reservoir Expansion Project. Denver Water is expanding Gross Reservoirs so that they can increase the supply that they have for consumptive use. And part of that is raising the dam approximately 140 feet. We have water in the prototype coming in at about 60 miles an hour. We take the energy out of the water in a very controlled environment and convey it safely downstream. The importance of the dam then is, should a flood come through, we design for what's called the probable maximum flood. This structure has to be able to safely convey that downstream into the receiving waters of South Boulder Creek. If water were to come over the crest of the dam and, say, erode the toe of the structure and fail that dam, all of the water in the reservoir would be conveyed downstream. So loss of life, loss of property, loss of infrastructure is huge. It's a little scary. You got to make sure you get it right. The margin for error is very, very slim with a structure like this. Go ahead. There's very few labs in the world left that are doing this type of research and this type of design engineering.
A look at the indoor falls from photojournalist Travis Kachtorian. Construction of the Gross Dam expansion and the new spillway is expected to be completed by the end of 2025.
If your work is kind of boring,
we sell gray metal boxes for a living.
Hopefully you at least work with interesting people.
At least I know they love me.
And if it wasn't a problem, there wouldn't be a sign. That's next.
A lot of authors' first books barely make a ripple in the wide world of literature. Denver's Kali Fajardo-Anstine just released her first book in April, and it's up for a National Book Award. That is a big-time honor. The National Book Foundation just released its list of finalists. Kali's book, Sabrina and Karina, is one of the 5 finalists for the award's fiction category. We told you about her collection of 5 short stories that follow the lives of Chicanos growing up in Denver. She based the stories off her own experiences of growing up here. The billboard at Calumet and 2nd isn't advertising anything other than a sense of humor. Since it's coming down today, our Noel Brennan decided to share the backstory.
ATS demands power from the emergency side, then the temporary generator will fire up and supply power.
Don't all thermomag breakers have some sort of mechanism?
We don't put the docking station ahead of the ATS.
When the shop talk starts to get dry.
So this is just a backup to your backup.
This office leans heavily on humor.
100%, because our products are so incredibly boring. We have to make sure we laugh all the time.
Tom Cook has kept everyone laughing all week at the expense of Chad Sneed.
Occasionally things will happen that'll make me the center of attention.
That's right.
This time, the joke traveled outside the office, just in time for Chad's 40th birthday.
I wanted to record Chad's reaction when he got out of the car. So when I got out of the car, I started recording him like this.
What are you doing?
He's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing filming me?"
What's wrong with you?
And I'm like this. Look up.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
The best $1,500 the office ever spent.
That is a selfie I took with a superimposed mock turtle on the selfie. It says, "This is Chad, it's his birthday."
The perfect view of Billboard Chad is from Chad's office.
A couple weeks ago it was Carrie Underwood. Occasionally it'll be a Nuggets or an Avs advertisement or something like that. But for the past week, it's been a little something different.
That's right.
A week of office humor on full display.
At least I know they love me.
For Next, I'm Noel Brennan.
The photo, by the way, is real. Chad says about 5 years ago he saved the stash when he was shaving a beard so he could take a funny photo. A decision, he tells us, he has regretted all week. It's a sign that living next to a bar in Silver Plume can bring some unwanted visitors around. That and your feedback next. It's a sign of where people are going in Silver Plume these days. And it would appear to be down near the end of Main Street, not far from a bar, where the people who live there have put up a sign saying, "Not a bathroom, don't even think about it. You're on camera," suggesting that those dirty deeds will be caught on video. Next viewer named Karine spotted this. "If we have said it once, we've said it a million times. There wouldn't be a sign if there wasn't an issue." So send us the signs you see. Email next@9news.com or use the hashtag #HeyNext. Both Sarah and Paige had seen the birthday ode to Chad at Calumet and 2nd. Sarah said, "We saw the sign and wondered about Chad. Thanks." Jim writes in, "Love that you're calling out all the news stations, including your own, for the impending snow team coverage. It's snow, people. Deal with it." Yes, it is going to snow later this week. I'm not sure if anybody's ever suggested this before, but maybe we should slow down. See you next time.